candy shop.
I taste just like candy.
Well, sorry you missed a little bit. I had the phone was the wrong orientation, so now I had to like fix it so that you have like a proper view on the Facebook. Anyway, so tonight I wanted to which, of course, I had the phone at the wrong orientation because tonight I want to do a mental health check-in, and I got to tell you, this whole week has been fucking with me. So, of course, the buses, there was like 1 million buses, and none of them were in service here in New Jersey. And so I could not get to Manhattan so that I could come on and, talk to you people from Metro Podcast Studios like I always do. Of course, I have the phone at the wrong orientation. This has just been one of those kinds of weeks. This past week was actually Mental Health Awareness Week. I don't know if there was something in the air, something in the ethers, but I gotta tell you, the whole week was fucking with me in a major way. And I felt like if that's what's happening with me, I'm sure I'm not the only one, because I'm very attuned to the idea that we're all community, that, if one of us is going through something, all of us are going through something. Welcome to the people who have joined. I can't see who it is because I don't know what's going on. Facebook's not showing me. Let me turn down my sound. But yeah, so, what I wanted to do is a check-in and just see how everybody's doing. Like, a lot of times I do the show and, I finish the podcast and everything, and I don't get to check in with everybody and see how they are. And I feel like that's part of the reason that right now this whole thing with mental health, part of the reason, because there's so many things going on in the world right now that are messing with people's mental health. But I think one of the things that we don't do anymore because of social media is we don't check in on people like in the olden days, like we used to, like, actually showing up at people's houses and, visiting people, seeing about people. No one seems to do that anymore. So that's what I wanted this to be. So first of all, let's just say, I know Armed Radio people, you might be listening on your smart device to the TuneIn app. Welcome, listening to Armed Radio. Or you're listening in the garden on armedradioglobal.com. We're also on iHeartRadio, so don't forget to follow us and download your favorite shows. And for the streamers, we're also available on Spotify, Spreaker, or maybe you're live with me here on the Facebook. If you are, welcome. I see a few people are in, but I can't see your names yet, so I don't know what's going on. Of course, technology is acting crazy. It's just one of those weeks. So yeah, if you're live on the Facebook, talk to me. We're checking in. I'm checking in on your mental health, and I'm letting you check in on mine, because mine needs to be checked in on this week. This has been an insane week. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. If you want to, you can talk to us online on the Facebook, or you can send me an email at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com if you're shy and you don't want to put all your business out there. And so this is the time when we share. Of course, when I lost the feed, I lost the whole, not the feed, but when the phone orientation was turned the wrong way, I actually lost all the titles and the descriptions and, all that stuff. But you know what? We're just going to roll with it. We're going to roll with it because that's what we do. And that's why we check in on each other mentally. Okay, let me see. What can I share this to? I'm going to share it to my group. If you're on Facebook or if you're online at all, join my group. It's called Ask for Candy podcast group on Facebook. And that way you'll also be able to interact live. Hi, David Johnson. I see that you just joined. Hi, my love. Right now we're just sharing. I'm sharing to my business page. And I'm putting a title on it because I just had to change it all. Who's checking in on you? Yeah, this is the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, people. When there's technical difficulties, when there's whatever, and I go crazy and I go nuts and, whatever. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, so you can also be watching on my business page, Candace Harper Love Coach. Back to the business at hand. This is just craziness this week. So, like I said before, if you're new, I am Candace Harper Love Coach. Welcome, David. Welcome, Shanton. Sorry, I had to cut off that other feed. Something was going on with the phone orientation. My talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. And my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And that is why will always be a conversation. Not here to shame your love situation or your life choices or anything like that. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehoods, and healthy relationships. So tonight and every Monday night, we're going to do what it is we do, which is have conversations that engage and enlighten and educate all of us in the areas of love, sex, relationships, and particularly this show, Vibrating High. So we're going to be talking about the check-in, checking in on the people you care about. And I believe this so strongly, I really do, that you don't really love someone if you're not checking in on them every now and then. And you can sit on that one. Also sit on the fact that just because you're seeing them on social media, or you're interacting with them on social media, or you're liking their posts or making comments and things like that, that doesn't count as checking in on someone. That doesn't count as having intimacy. It's false intimacy. Now, I'm not putting down social media, because I do think that, it has its positives, because it does kind of keep us abreast of each other and abreast of more people than we would be able to otherwise. But if you really, really care about somebody, you really love somebody, you are doing it the old-fashioned way. You are checking in, you are calling them, you are seeing them, you are making sure that they are okay. Now, why am I so hardcore on this topic tonight? So, as you know, we've been talking about healing the mother-daughter relationship. And, the reason that I use the mother-daughter relationship is because it's something that I have a lot of experience with, but also I believe that it is a pinnacle relationship that also represents how we show up in other relationships. And it also, can parallel to the father-son relationship. It's one of those relationships that when you talk about it, it can kind of cover everything. And our relationships with each other are so important. And that's why I talk about healthy relationships and how you cultivate healthy relationships. And one of the ways that we do this is by really being cognizant of our mental health and, what's happening with us emotionally, and what we can do to feel good and feel better about life, and just be present and be with each other. So I decided tonight, since I'm coming on by myself, I actually made the choice last week, because last week was challenging as hell for me. I don't know about you. I don't say that like, oh, I'm the only one who life is challenging for, because trust me, I know, we live in a very challenging culture. And I just did not get a guest. I did not get all prepped and prepared for the show like I normally do, because that's something that I've been doing every week. And, the week kind of started off with tragedy. And, from then on, I just kind of was like, I want to just do everything different. And I don't say that in a woe is me kind of way. I say it in a, mental health was challenged last week. So tonight, you guys, the listening audience, are my special guests. Like I said, I'm doing a check-in with you. If you're on the Facebook, if you're live on the Facebook, you can talk to me. You can check in with me. You can say, talk about anything that you want to talk about. I'm going to put a title here so that people know what we're talking about. I know I keep talking about that I had to change the video, but it's like, I don't know, this technical stuff, whatever. I can't put a title on it. It is what it is. So anyway, what I want to talk about tonight, and I want to get kind of really raw and real, is some of the things that did challenge me, and also, what are the things that I do to manage when my mental health is challenged. And so, for one thing, I just want to be really open and vulnerable about all of it, and be real about all of it. I always say, in the coaching space, I always say I'm the coach on the court, but not just with the coaching, with the, this podcasting, with, creating content, all of this stuff. I think it's really important to be very open and be very vulnerable about where I'm coming from and who I am, because there's nothing worse than putting yourself on a pedestal and trying to put up an image that you're coming from on high and that you're living from a place of perfection and telling other people how to live and then trying to maintain that perfection. I tried that for a while. I had a few years when I was in a relationship, when I first really niched in relationship coaching and love coaching, where what I was doing was, being in an abusive relationship and, really struggling, and then also trying to teach people how to be in a relationship or get in a relationship and date and things like that when it just wasn't going very well for me. So through last week and some of the things that I experienced, one of the things that came up from, one of my favorite mentors, she always says this and she's always right. She always says, expose yourself to expand yourself. So part of what this show is about is, all of us being able to get really exposing. You don't have to. I'm the one here on the podcast on camera, but you're invited to. So if, as I'm sharing things, if something comes up for you and you feel like you want to share your shit too, just to get it off your chest, or if you want to talk about anything that has challenged you within the last week or so, you're perfectly welcome to do that. So, this is as always a conversation, but I also know that I talk about some things that people don't necessarily like to talk about, and that's okay. I'm a big believer in, the healingness of, how healing it can be when you get personal. Hi, Rambo, who just joined. Hi, honey. So the first thing that I want to share, biggest challenge to my mental health last week. The week started off with a death. The death of my mentor's daughter. Okay, so I'm not saying that this was a mental health challenge for me to make it about me, because it wasn't about me at all. But, and her daughter wasn't someone that I necessarily saw every day. She wasn't necessarily someone who was, in my everyday life, but it hit me really, really hard. And this is all hindsight talking, because in the moments, if I'm sure you've experienced loss or grief or, finding out news that you weren't expecting to hear, especially when it's someone who's young. In the moment that you hear it, you don't know what the changes are that you're going through. Or a lot of times the grief begins and you're not even really sure what it is that's making it as deep as it is, or having you feel the way you feel about it. Now there's the natural human tendency to feel empathetic for a situation that's sad, and then there's also those things that like really can take you down and really make you feel a lot of emotion, and that's what this was for me. And so through the course of the week I was like, wow, like this is really fucking with me. Like from, the very first that I heard the news, it just really, started to get to me. Like, what is this that's going on with me? And then I had the opportunity to also do the slideshow for her viewing. And I know this is sad stuff. I don't mean to be depressing tonight, because this is all going to have a happy ending, by the way. Just, so stick with me. But, in doing that slideshow, I found myself just really days of weeping and, really just triggered and not really knowing, why it was affecting me so harshly, so deeply, besides the fact that I do love my mentor and I love her family. It just really was messing with me in a big way. And what I discovered about it, through just like letting myself process it, letting myself feel sad for the days that I needed to feel sad, and just letting myself be with it up until even the funeral. And what I got to experience with the funeral was a number of things. And you can use these things if you want to use them. I'm not telling you these things to tell you this is what you have to do when you're grieving, or this is what you have to do when you're met with the mental challenge of a loss of a person. This is not what this is about. But, here's the things that I did. I let myself process it. I let myself cry about it. I let myself be sad the whole week long. I was sad as hell. Like sadder than sad. And also a little bit sick because I got a cold too. I allowed that. And, by the time we got to the funeral, luckily, my mentor, who was her mother, got up and spoke, and there was a pastor there that got up and spoke, and it was a positive celebration of life. And there were just a couple things that came up during the course of the celebration of life that really, really helped me through it. The first thing was, not chronologically, because I'm just saying it as I remember, is that my mentor reminded all of us there at the funeral, to breathe. To breathe, because she knew that all of us, we're in this culture where we feel like if something that we don't want to happen happens, we tense up and we stress and we worry and, we get sick about it. And I realized that that's what I had done for that whole week. I'd been tensed up and I was worried and I was sick about it. And just her saying, just breathe, breathe. And you're allowed to do that because there's nothing wrong here. And I know that sounds crazy, because when someone passes away, when we experience grief and loss, it's like that's the first thing that we want to go to, that there's something wrong. But when she said that, like, there's nothing wrong here. Like, first she talked about feeling blessed that she had her daughter for the amount of time that she had her, for the 31 years. And then also she pointed to all that this young woman had done in her life, and that she was living her life to the fullest in those 31 years. And it just, in doing the slideshow for her funeral, I got to experience and see all of the things that she had done in her life. And also, being someone who knows her from social media, I'd seen a lot of photographs and pictures about all the things that she had done in her life. And so, basically what it brought up for me is that it's the cycle of life. Like, and even the pastor at one point said, someone can die at 90 years old and people still act like it's not supposed to happen. And it's going to happen to all of us. I don't mean to be morbid, but you know what? We're all going to die. And the pastor even said that too. We're all going to die. And what I realized through all of that process, and, hearing what I heard and getting to go to the funeral, and I'm so glad that I went. And that's another thing too. If you ever lose someone, don't let anything stand in the way of being there to be able to say goodbye and complete and celebrate their life. But through all of that, here are some of the things that I got, is that, the time is now to be living, right? The time is now. There's no other time. Whatever it is that you want to be doing or creating, or whoever you want to be in this life right now, the time is right now. And we have these miracle people in our lives, and we get to know these people for flashes of time, for however long. And, we're all these people for other people, just to inspire us to move forward and inspire. And, there's something to learn from their loss, and there's something to learn from how they lived their lives. And there's something to learn from, just being part of a community and knowing how to not necessarily find the good. Everything doesn't have to be a silver lining or Pollyanna, but understand that the cycle of life is not wrong. There's nothing wrong. Even when we feel like it's an accident, it should have never happened, there is something to be gained from every experience. So for me, that was a huge just relief off of my shoulders. And it was just a huge way to kind of, allow myself to process that and still be sad about the loss. You can, this is not about don't be sad about the loss and pretend like everything's okay, but make it make sense. How did I need to make it make sense for myself? So that was a great thing that really, I don't know. It let me know, first of all, it's time to really be getting my shit together in a big way. Because exposing myself to expand myself, true confessions, I have not had my shit together. Yeah, I work, I put out fires, I do things, I, try to take inspired actions around things. I do this podcast, I try to put out a lot of content and, be talking to you guys. But, when I really think about it, and all the things that I say that I want to do, and the things that I say I want to be up to, like completing my book and getting my intensive off the ground and all of those things, like I find myself limiting myself and holding back, not going as far as I could, not being as big as I could, in the spaces of all the things that I want to do. Hopefully I'm not making this too convoluted. This is a mental check-in, y'all. So just know that it's going to go in all different directions. And like I said, feel free if you want to make a comment, and also, share something about your own week, your own whatever's going on with you, how you're feeling, where you're at. So yeah, that first thing that I really learned with the death of my mentor's daughter is it's time to get my shit together. There's nothing wrong. It's not wrong. It's the circle, the cycle of life. There's a time for everyone, time for everything, just like it says in the Bible. And that breathing and crying is good. So, I don't know if that helps anybody out there, if that's anything that can support you, but it supports me to just be able to admit it, be able to say it, put it out there, and say what's so. So what are some other things this week? This was a crazy week. Another challenge to mental health. Another thing that really has been challenging my mental health lately is just like life just being in transition right now. Life is in transition for me. And I imagine if it's also in transition for you, or if it's not in transition for you, you might be thinking, should it be in transition for me? Or do I need for it to be in transition for me? And I think that's another part of our human existence and can be a real challenge to our mental well-being, because a lot of times it comes from a story of what we're supposed to be doing at certain stages of our life, where we're supposed to be at certain ages, what we're supposed to have accomplished, all of that stuff. And, for the last, I would say, I don't know, we're going on 7 years since I last had a regular full-time job. Actually, more than, 2019? So we're going on 8 years since I last had a regular full-time job. So for the last 8 years in building my business and things like that, my life has been in transition. And in one way or another. And now it's really, really in transition because, I'm living in a temporary situation and I'm not really sure what my next inspired action is going to be, except for what I do day to day. So I don't know that I learned any. I've learned, anything around that at this point. Right now, I know that there's things that I need to get completed with, like I was mentioning, my book. I know that there's things that I need to be, doing daily and really being committed to. And I know what my long vision is. I'm very clear about that. I'm very clear about what I'm trying to manifest as a vision. And some of that I see manifesting and some of it I don't. But it's very much in a space of total uncertainty. My life is completely uncertain at this moment. Now, why am I saying that? Because last week that was a huge challenge to my mental health. And I don't know about you guys, so many people that I know, they feel like they wouldn't be anything if they didn't have a job, if they didn't have a full-time job, or if they didn't know where their check was coming from each week, that would be a real challenge for them anyway. And for a long time, I felt like it was something that I could deal with easily. And then it got to a point where it started to be difficult to deal with, and it got even more difficult to deal with, the uncertainty. But right now, I have to say that the uncertainty of my life is extremely high. And there's a lot of possibilities. Like, I think about the possibility of traveling, doing a program called Remote Year. I think about the possibility of just going ahead and going back to having a full-time job so that life is not a roller coaster. And so it's constant consistency, alliteration. I think about all the possibilities for what I could do, and it seems like, you're single, you have no kids, you should just do whatever you want to do. And I guess that's kind of true in a way, but, if you ever have tried to sort of invent your own path or lay your own path and kind of go the way that you want to go, you know that a lot of things can be a challenge to that. So whether it's imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, what we tell ourselves, all of the things that come up around limitation, money blocks, so many things can be a hindrance to actually being able to feel like you can live and do and be exactly how you want to be. And so for me, last week, just being in a space of like, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go? How am I going to figure all of this stuff out? And there is so much stuff to figure out in my mind was a challenge to my mental health. So what did I learn from that? I'm still in the process of learning from that. I'm still in a space of like, what is there to learn from that? What is there to understand from being in the space of uncertainty? So yeah, I think practical people like my father and probably so many of you out there would be like, get a job, get it together, get a normal life like everybody else, get back in the hustle, find a place to live that's permanent, and settle down and figure it out and get in a relationship and do all of that stuff. And that's all very reasonable. There's nothing wrong with seeing it that way. I don't think. I think it's all very ordinary. I don't have any argument about whether it's right or wrong. I think that it can be right for some people, and I definitely think it can be right for people who fear uncertainty. But I'm also a believer that there is no such thing as real certainty. Like there's only a few certain things, things like death, taxes, your racial orientation. Like there's only a few things in this life that are actually certain. And so I don't believe in the myth of certainty that, having a full-time job and having a house, because people lose that kind of stuff all the time. I actually was one of those people. So, I say all of that to say what have I learned? I have 100% faith in the clarity of what I'm trying to create and the vision I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to create with my business, where I'm trying to go with that. And, what I want that to look like. I have 100% clarity that I know that I want to be able to travel the world and get to that point. And the one thing that I find myself doing, and I was just talking to a friend the other day, is in as much as I have faith in my ability to create and manifest the things that I want, there are times, like this past week, where I lose the faith. And I'm sure, we all have times when we lose the faith, where we forget about what's possible and we forget about, how we can actually make what we want happen just with a willingness to see it, believe that it's going to happen, and take inspired action without being attached every moment to it happening and looking for it. Because when you look for it, it's like the watch pot that never boils, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm taking away from that mental challenge of last week. Like, why hasn't everything that I want to have happened? And it sounds so spoiled and entitled from this instant gratification culture that I come from. But I've been working at it for some years now, probably, like I said, going on 8 years, I've been working at it, and a lot has manifested, a lot. And that's another thing, just being able to look at that and appreciate that and be in gratitude of that, and, give myself and others who've been there to support me the credit that, without them, without the actions that I have taken, wouldn't even be where I am right now. So I share that to say, if there's anybody out there who's in that same space, if you're also feeling like, whatever it is that you're trying to do is not happening, and, whatever it is that you want to create is not being what you want it to be, it's really just about not being attached to making it happen and vibrating on a level that what's going to happen, and having that true faith. And last week I lost that faith. That's the hardest thing, is maintaining that faith and keeping it, especially when life's challenges come up and those things that we don't want start happening, because it feels like, oh no, now, the things that I want to happen can't happen. There's no space for them. And it's really hard to stay on that high vibration when you feel like it's not, it's not coming to fruition. But, I really feel like the biggest lesson that I got is to just stay the course, because there are like really great things that have manifested. And, just the fact that I do have a roof over my head right now is a positive manifestation. Just the fact that I'm able to do this on my computer and talk to you guys about it is a huge manifestation. So that's been a big help. And, when my depression or anxiety comes up around it, I have to remember those things. No, it seems so crazy right now in talking about it because I'm taking you guys through the whole process. But last week I was a mess. I was a mess around all of this stuff. And, for any of you out there who are feeling the same way, I just really wanted to connect with you because I feel like, we always talk about how on social media you do see the best of what's going on in someone's life. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's great that great things are happening to people. But, it's why it's so important to be able to talk to each other, check in with each other, and actually have real conversations because sometimes behind the scenes, behind what looks so great and fantastic and amazing, there's some stuff going on. There's some sad stuff, and sometimes people are isolated and alone. And we need to be able to check in on each other. We need to be able to talk to each other. It's so funny because I see all my guys who are like signing in and signing out. And you know what? I don't know if it's just that I'm being boring or if the guys who normally sign in and stick around and hang out, they're like, this is not my cup of tea. Or if it's like, guys and emotions, sometimes they're like a little put off by it. That's okay. You can always come back and watch later. So what's another thing? Challenging my mental health. All of this stuff too is tied together. So, I feel like when you're in a place of feeling really down about things, and, I'm going to keep talking about this from my perspective because I don't want to be handing anything down to you as to how you feel. That's something you have to decide for yourself. But for me, in a place of feeling down about things, everything's usually pretty much connected. They can be traced back to each other in some way. So, with the death of my mentor's daughter and thinking about needing to be further along in my life and, certainty and what am I doing? What am I creating? I need to get my shit together. All of that stuff ties into every aspect of my life. And another aspect that was really challenging my mental health last week was this, me staying single right now. Now, I am not one of those women who believes that getting in a relationship will make you happy. Because I believe that we have to make ourselves happy first. Even if we're already in a relationship, you got to be willing to make yourself happy first. However, last week was challenging in that I didn't have a partner, somebody who, could help bear the brunt of a lot of what was going on in a way that and I believe in supporting a high vibration, right? So someone who can support me staying in a high vibration and I can do the same for them. Like last week, it was a challenge to not have a partner that can do that. But I will say the choice to stay single has been one that I am proud to be making because most of my adult life, I didn't make that choice. Instead, I made the choice to always be in a partnership, always be in a relationship. And that was not the right road for me. That wasn't a workable way to be because I wasn't taking the time to be in relationship with myself. And I will say that I decided to make God a promise, make the universe a promise that I will not get into another relationship in my life. I refuse to get into another relationship unless it's with someone who I have ultimate ease and alignment with. So what does that even mean? What does that even look like, having ultimate ease and alignment with someone you're in a relationship with? It means that there's no game playing, wondering when to call, no, did I behave properly? I can 100% be myself with that person and they can 100% be themselves with me. And doesn't mean that we like every single thing that each other does, but it's acceptable, it's lovable. We can be in acceptance of each other. Someone who understands how purpose-driven I am and supports that and thinks that that's a asset, not a liability. Someone who is a cheerleader of that and someone for whom I can do the same thing, who's also very purpose-driven, knows what they want to do, and is, very enlightened about it. Like, that's the kind of relationship that I want to be in. Someone who's, a best friend, someone who understands what it takes to build something and wants to be on board for that and can create visions with me and can collaborate, and someone that, I just love being in their space. I love being around them. So I've had lots of opportunities to do what I used to do, which is to get into situations. So whether it was someone who I didn't really see as a long-term person, someone who, wouldn't be viable as a long-term person, But I was trying to force them into being a long-term person. Like, I'm just not doing that anymore. And I've been able to, in the last few years or so, even since my last relationship, which broke up 3 years ago, I have had many opportunities to get into situations rather than being in relationships, or just to be in a thing, so that I could say I was in a thing, whether I'm saying it for social media, or just saying it because I think I'm supposed to say it, or that's traditionally what goes on. Like, people just get in relationships. You're supposed to be married at this age, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that, all the supposed to be's, all the shooting on ourselves. Yeah, I've had many opportunities, many of whom, just were unavailable for emotional reasons, unavailable because they were already in relationships making attempts to connect with me on that level, unavailable because I didn't connect with them in that way. And, even though I've had people make commentary about my age and, my life choices, and that I should, basically they're telling me I should lower my standards just to be in a relationship, I am so 100% clear that it is so much better to be single than to be in a relationship for the sake of being in a relationship. And I know I'm not saying anything groundbreaking, but, along the lines of checking in with the mental health, with this staying single, sometimes it does get challenging because you think, wow, it would be so easy to just, hook up with somebody, or spend time with somebody who is in a relationship with somebody else, but I need them for the moment or whatever. But like I said, I'm staying the course with this promise to the universe, this promise to God that I'm in full 100% faith that what I want will be manifested, and what I envision will be created. But I have to show my faith by not aligning with anything that doesn't align with me, not compromising what is core value to me, what is most important to me, in order to have, someone who doesn't align with me, so that I can just say that I have someone. A lot of people do it. I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. If you feel like the only way that you can survive and live is in a relationship, and the only way you're going to be okay is if you have somebody, I have no judgments about that. If you want to try to do that and make that work, and you can make it work, good for you. I just know for me, trying to force a relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship has definitely been a road of doom, a road of unhappiness, and a road to breakup. So yeah, I am making a choice right now to stay single until I, meet someone or encounter someone who is in full alignment with who I am as a human being, who I am as a woman, who I am as a person on this earth, and what I'm up to, and what I'm purposeful about. That's what I'm open to. I'm not open to anything else, and I'm good with that. Hi John, hi Brian, who joined, and Thomas. Yeah, but last week mental health was challenged, honey. And that's what happens. When we get committed to something and we want to put our integrity on it, we want to say, like, that's my word. That's what I'm committed to. That's what I'm promising to myself. And it's not about what anybody else thinks. It's not about what anybody else tells me I should be doing. Not about anybody else's rules. When we make that decision, it can be very, very challenging to our well-being, very challenging to our mental health, because we start to feel like we're going to get kicked off the island, or that we're doing something wrong, or that we're breaking ranks. And none of that's true. It's just a story that we tell ourselves, because it's really important to make yourself happy. So what are some other things? And you guys feel free to chime in. Like I said, I know it's a bunch of guys. Hi, Xavier, who just joined. Bunch of guys. You're coming in and out. I don't know if it's because I'm talking about emotional stuff. Sometimes guys aren't so comfortable with that sort of thing. But, feel free if you want to share anything that has challenged your mental health in this last week. Like I said, my mentor says, expose yourself to expand yourself. Getting the stuff off your chest, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of like getting this shit off my chest. And you're like, oh, Candace, why don't you tell your best friend? Well, I feel like friends are great for talking to, and you know, they all have their purpose in your life, right? There's nothing to get, obviously that's why we have our friends, so we can share who we are and talk about our stuff. But the reason that I have this platform, the reason that I use this format is because I do want to widen my reach. I feel like in sharing what's going on with us personally, we help other people, and we also let our communities and let other people know that they're not alone in all of this shit. Like, you're not alone. And maybe you don't have the exact same challenges to your mental health that I do, but whatever yours may be, it's just good to know that you're not the only one who is dealing with them, right? What are some other things? You know what? I'm going to like all the sort of like vulnerable, like ouchy kind of places right now. But I feel good about it. Like already, even though this is not my most watched video on the Facebook, I don't know what's going on out in Armed Radio as far as listening. But I feel really good about just kind of letting this stuff off my chest. I feel really good about just saying what these things are, because I don't know. That it's freeing. It's freeing. Expose yourself to expand yourself. Okay, so another thing that really was challenging my mental health, and this also goes back to the death of my friend's daughter, is the thought of never becoming a mom. And so obviously that's biological. I'm a woman of a certain age. I had a few attempts that didn't work out, and I go back and forth. Last week, when my mentor's daughter passed away, there was some real challenge that came up around that. Like, I had some real mental hardship around just the idea of, not ever having that experience of, bringing someone into the world and bringing them to, she was an amazing young woman. And, no one has a parenting rule book. Nobody knows how to do it right per se. But I have to say, I know my mentor's children, and, from what I know of my mentor's children, she's doing an amazing job, and she did an amazing job with her young daughter who passed away. And so that came up for me, like the whole motherhood thing. The fact that is something that may never be something that I get to experience. And the likelihood is, it lessens with every month that goes by, with every day that goes by. And so that really was messing with my mental health in a big way last week. Like, just in having the sadness and the grief over losing my mentor's daughter, and then, just thinking about all those things, it just was like a soup. And that's what sometimes happens to us, right? Like, sometimes a sad thing will happen and it'll trigger other sad things that we're thinking about, and it'll, it's almost like it digs in, and then it gets to all those other little hurty places where it's like, I don't really feel so good about that, and there's nothing that I can do to control it. Now, there are things that I can do spiritually and scientifically that might change it, that have a possibility for changing it. And there's definitely things that I can do emotionally to, sort of heal those spaces and see where it goes. And I'm a big believer in being able to visualize and create and be open to possibility. So I haven't just completely given up on the idea that it could ever happen. It just may not happen in the way that I originally envisioned. And it may not happen in the way that I was originally told it should happen traditionally. So a lot of times we think that certain things are supposed to happen in our lives the way that it was modeled for us, and the way that it was told to us that it needs to happen. And especially, I think that happens a lot around family. And so, the idea of like getting married. So if your parents were married or are married and stayed married, sometimes the pressure is, I've got to do the same thing. Or, it could be anything. If you're, straight or gay or whatever, maybe if what was modeled for you was straight relationships, you think there's something wrong with being gay. Or, there's so many things that dictate who we're supposed to be, that actually just have us in a story of making ourselves wrong when we're not what we're supposed to be. And who knows really what we're supposed to be? Nobody. Like, nobody knows what we're supposed to be except ourselves. That has to come from us, right? So I think, and I know I'm going all over the place with this, but this is a mental health check-in. And that's why I'm all over the place. And that's why I'm touching on all of these things. So when it goes back to the motherhood thing, I think for me, it's really being okay with the possibility that it's not going to happen in a traditional way, that it's not going to happen in the way that it happened for my mother, or the way that it happened for my sisters or my cousins, or whoever did it in a traditional way. That's their story. That's their life's journey. And, my life's journey with that is something that could be completely different. And a lot of it is yet to have unfolded or yet to have been created. And so it's my own openness to have it be different than, whatever the rule book says, or whatever, whoever told me how it was supposed to go. It's my own willingness to let it be different that's going to have me have what I want. It's my own willingness to say it's okay that it's not, exactly what I was told it was supposed to be. Or it's okay that, it looks different than how it looks for my family. Like, I have to be able to tell myself that. I have to be able to, get really in touch with what I really want, not what I've been told I should want or how it should be. And so I think that's my consolation for that. And hopefully you find some consolation in that too. If there's something for you that you're like, oh, I never got to do that thing, or I don't think I'm ever going to get to be able to do it. Maybe it's not about giving up on it. Maybe it's just about however it's going to look for you. It has to look for you. It's going to look different than what you think. And yeah, those are some of the things that were challenging my mental health last week. I don't know about you guys. I know this is like, one of those sort of like rough topics, and people don't necessarily want to talk about it publicly, and I'm totally okay with that. But, sharing it myself, because I understand the healing powers of sharing and just saying what's there for you. What's another thing that I wanted to talk about? Oh, like this whole aging thing, man. I don't know how you guys are doing with it. We're on Facebook, so I'm assuming that everybody's of a certain age because, the younger people are on Instagram and TikTok. But, I've been dealing with, it's called piriformis syndrome, which is kind of like a sciatica, and it's so painful. Last week, it was just crazy. The higher the stress, the worse that I'm eating, the worse that I'm taking care of myself, the more painful it is. And so, that's what I learned around that. Like, it's so important, especially as we're getting older, to, make sure that we're eating right, getting enough sleep, and even in times of like grief and turmoil, just your own self-care and taking care of your body, and, making sure that you put yourself first. 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 I can't say it enough times. I don't care if anybody calls you selfish. If you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot take care of anybody else. If you are not taking care of your body, if you're not doing what you need to do to get enough sleep, if you're not eating the right things, or eating things that make you feel energetic, make you feel good, make you feel better, giving your body the fuel that it needs, all of that stuff. And I know you guys know this. I know I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking, but I think if we don't talk about it, and we don't share in the fact that not doing it does have a really detrimental effect, and that it's a today effect. It's not about like, years from now when we're older and we start getting diseases and the body starts breaking down and stuff like that. Like, it's today. It's now. It's now. And I'm not preaching or soapboxing or anything like that, but, for my own sake, I had to discover that, this pain, this sciatica, this literal pain in my ass, has to do with me not taking care of myself, what I'm not doing for myself, how I'm not making myself better, and how I'm, dealing with stress or not dealing with stress, as it were. Anyway, I can't believe it. We're already like 53 minutes in. I'm a talker, honey. I could just talk all night. I could keep going. But those are the things that just really challenged my mental health this past week. If you come later and you're watching and you comment, I see Amy. Hi, Amy. Xavier, Brian, John, so nice that you guys joined. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. If you come later on, please feel free to comment below and share, and I will come back to the post and, interact with you and comment back and all of that stuff. It's like my mentor said, she said it at her own daughter's funeral: expose yourself to expand yourself, expose yourself to expand yourself. You've got to be willing to talk about it in order to grow from it, heal it, understand how you fit in with the community, share, what's going on with you, and check in on each other. Check in on your people. Check in on me. I'll check in on you, especially those of us who live alone, but even if you don't, because a lot of times people will be in the same house isolated from each other. People will be sleeping in the same bed and not talking to each other about what's really going on. So you always want to, if you really love someone, you say you love someone, you want to be checking in on them as often as you can. You definitely want to check in. All right, so it is already 8:54, and there's a couple things that I want to make sure to tell you guys about going forward. And then the other thing that I'm working on right now is the Epic Intensive. So if you are an abused daughter who was raised by an abused daughter, coming up is the registration for the Epic Intensive. It opens up this month. Epic stands for Empowering Practices for Intimate Connections. The focus will be getting right with mom for the sake of your love life. And we are turning stressed out or abused daughters into epic women. So if you think your lifelong relationship with your mother may be negatively impacting your love life, this is the intensive group coaching for you. If you want to heal, master the skills to create healthy relationships, or start all over again from a clean slate and attract the ultimate love of your life, which is what I am in the midst of doing right now, use the link on my business page, Candace Harper Love Coach, to apply and to become an epic woman and join us for this amazing intensive. Not only do you get the tools to create healthy relationships and the healing of your mother-daughter relationship, but my clients, when I've taken them through this 90-day intensive, they always lose weight. They're always like 10 times happier, which I know everybody's selling happiness, but it's a thing, right? Joy and happiness, it's a thing. It's a thing you can have. You don't have to be part of the depression and anxiety crowd. And that's not to put down if you have depression and anxiety. I myself have struggled and been challenged by depression and anxiety, so I get it. And been diagnosed many times. I do think it's curable. I do think there's possibilities there, and I do think that there's things that can be done and tools that can be used in order to have a different experience. Should you choose to accept them? Should you choose to go down that road? Also, follow us on Instagram, Ask for Candy Podcast. And I know that the Armed Radio people are going to be leaving soon, so I want to tell them until next time, never forget that you are a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more and ask for candy. I want to thank all of you guys who stopped in, even if you just stopped in for a moment, all of you guys who listened all the way through, everybody who listens later on, everybody who listens later on when we're on YouTube, once I get this on YouTube. And like I said, you can always email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com, and you can send questions for me or any experts that you've ever seen on before, guests or anything like that. And yeah, don't forget to follow on Instagram. I'm going to say that again, Ask for Candy Podcast, because I always give my other Instagram at Candy Love Coach, which you can follow that one too. But at Ask for Candy Podcast I'm trying to get some more followers on that one, to make sure that you guys can listen in and, see what we're up to and see the after and before pictures and all that good stuff. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. It's been another I had a great time. Hopefully you had a great time. I feel great. I totally have healed my last week. Anyway, I love you, Facebook. I love you so much. Take care. Have a good week.
I call my sugar.